Welcome to another deep dive. And today we're really diving deep into something kind of personal, I
Oh,
guess.
yeah.
C.S. Lewis's A Grief Observed.
Okay.
And
You wouldn't think a renowned theologian would write something so, well, real about grief, but
right.
that's exactly what makes it so powerful.
Absolutely. He doesn't sugarcoat anything. He just lays bare all these unexpected, even like disorienting parts of grief. It's
Yeah.
almost like he's giving us permission to experience loss in all its just messy, like realness.
I was reading that he was surprised by how grief actually felt. Like, it wasn't this, like, overwhelming wave of sadness that he
Right.
expected.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is fascinating, isn't it? He describes it more as fear, disconnection, almost like being in a fog. It makes
Oh.
you kind of wonder if like our cultural narratives about grief actually line up with what it's really like to experience loss.
Hmm. Yeah. And he even talks about this unexpected laziness of grief, which I found so relatable.
Like it's counterintuitive, right? You'd think someone who's grieving would want to like seek distraction, throw themselves into activity.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. But he talks about craving company, but then like dreading the actual interaction. It's like wanting the warmth of a blanket, but not the effort of pulling it up. Have you ever felt that?
Yeah.
That pull between isolation and connection in the midst of grief.
Absolutely, yeah. You just don't like your internal battery is just drained,
Right,
you know? And even simple tasks feel monumental.
right.
And he captures this perfectly. Lewis does with that line, "It's easy to see why the lonely become untidy, finally dirty and disgusting."
Wow. That line is so vivid, so unexpected. It really reveals how grief impacts not just like our emotional landscape, but even like our physical environment.
Yeah.
It's a stark reminder that grief isn't just an internal process, it manifests like in the world around us.
And for Lewis, this personal struggle became very much intertwined with his faith. I mean, here he was, this giant of Christian theology, and grief was shaking him to his core. And he even writes, "Where's God? Go to him when your need is desperate, when all other help is in vain. And what do you find? A door slammed in your face."
Yeah, that's the raw honesty that makes this book so powerful. He's not afraid to voice the doubt, the anger, even like accusations that can come up when we confront suffering, especially when it challenges our deeply held beliefs.
And it really makes you wonder, how can a loving God allow such pain? Like, it's a question that has haunted humanity for centuries, really.
It's the age-old problem of suffering, and while there are no easy answers, different belief systems offer all kinds of perspectives.
Right.
Some see suffering as a test of faith, others as a consequence of free will. It's a complex theological knot that he grapples with throughout the book.
It's something I imagine many people wrestle with, especially in those moments when they're faced with personal loss.
Yeah,
It's that search for meaning in the midst of pain.
right.
But for Lewis, it wasn't just his faith that was challenged. He also found himself battling the treacherous nature of memory itself.
Yes. He talks about this fear of his memory of H, his wife, becoming distorted over time, like losing her otherness
Yeah.
and just turning into a mere doll to be blubbered over.
That's such a heartbreaking thought. The idea of unintentionally diminishing someone's essence through the filter of our own grief.
Yeah, and it speaks to the complexity of memory. We often think of memories as these static recordings,
Right.
but they're incredibly dynamic, constantly being reshaped by our emotions, experiences, even our own biases.
So as time passes, our memories of those we've lost might inevitably change, become intertwined with our own evolving selves, with the experience of their absence.
Precisely. And that's why I think his fear resonates so deeply. On some level, we all harbor that fear that those we've lost might fade, not just from our lives, but also from the clarity of our memories.
Right. And isn't this what makes grief so personal, so
Yeah.
individual? We each carry our own unique experiences of the person we've lost.
Absolutely. And that's why there's no right way to grieve.
Right.
What brings comfort to one person might feel completely hollow to another.
Which brings us to Lewis's frustration with all those, well-intentioned but often empty platitudes people offer in the face of loss. He specifically mentions phrases like, "she's with God," or "she's at peace."
Yeah. He talks about how those phrases, while comforting to some, just rang hollow for him in that moment. Like he just couldn't access the emotional truth behind those words, even though intellectually he understood what they meant.
Right.
Yeah.
And this disconnect between the phrases, this really prompted you to explore the wider cultural and religious context surrounding grief rituals and expressions of comfort. What did you discover?
What's really interesting is that these rituals, whether it's a funeral, a prayer, or even just a specific phrase, often stem from this deep-seated human need to create order out of chaos, to
Mhm.
find meaning in the face of loss.
So while they might not resonate with everyone, they serve a purpose in helping people navigate that disorientation, that profound sense of loss that comes with death.
Exactly. They offer a shared language of grief, a way for communities to come together and support one another in times of mourning.
It makes you think back on your own experiences, doesn't it?
Hmm.
Have you encountered any expressions of comfort that felt particularly helpful or maybe even missed the mark entirely?
I think what often matters most isn't the specific words spoken, but the genuine empathy behind them.
Right.
That willingness to just be present with someone in their pain without trying to fix it or explain it away.
Right. And that really resonates with something Lewis describes later in the book.
Yeah.
Even in the depths of his grief, he experiences these really unexpected moments of lightness, almost like a renewed sense of H's presence.
Yes.
But it's not like a ghostly visitation or anything like that.
Right.
It's more of a shift in his own understanding of how to connect with her in her absence.
Yeah, he talks about how passionate grief does not link us with the dead, but cuts us off from them.
That's such a profound statement. Like it
Yeah.
really challenges the notion that the more intensely we grieve, the closer we are to the person we've lost.
And this is where our understanding of psychology, specifically the concept of post-traumatic growth, can be really helpful in understanding his experience.
Post-traumatic growth. That sounds kind of counterintuitive. How can something as painful as grief lead to growth?
It is a fascinating phenomenon, isn't it?
Yeah.
Essentially, it's the idea that even when faced with immense suffering, people can actually experience profound psychological growth.
Mhm.
It's not about denying or minimizing the pain, but more about recognizing that hardship can be a catalyst for transformation.
So it's less about, getting over grief and more about integrating it into our lives in a way that allows for growth and healing.
Yeah,
Would you say that's what Lewis is getting at?
I think so, yeah. Remember, he talks about choosing gratitude and even laughter over prolonged mourning.
Right.
It's like he understood that just clinging to that rawness of grief wasn't bringing him closer to H. If anything, it was creating a barrier.
And that makes me think about those moments he describes, where he senses H's presence.
Right.
It wasn't through tears or longing, but like during those unexpected bursts of joy.
Exactly. Like those moments let him connect with her essence, her spirit, in a way that transcended the physical, I guess.
It's almost as if he stumbled upon a different way of understanding connection, one that's less tethered to our earthly limitations.
Yeah.
And this new understanding, wouldn't you say, influenced how he grappled with his faith, especially those bigger questions about what happens after we die.
Absolutely. Early in the book, Lewis really wrestles with the possibility of a bad God, a God who allows suffering.
Right.
He even uses that analogy of God as a skilled surgeon causing pain to heal.
It's a powerful image, and it makes you think about that difficult truth. Healing often requires us to confront pain, to go through it rather than around it.
Yeah.
But his perspective on this kind of evolves, especially when he starts to explore different conceptions of the afterlife, right?
Yeah, you're right. You're picking up on a really important shift in his thinking. Initially, Lewis finds comfort in those traditional images of being reunited in heaven, but as he moves through his grief, he starts to question those very assumptions. He even criticizes the way we tend to project our desires onto our visions of the afterlife.
It's like he's saying, hey, we need to broaden our understanding of what's beyond this life, to move past those comforting but maybe limiting images we cling to.
Exactly. And this leads him to consider a concept of the afterlife that he initially found arid and chilling. This idea of pure intelligences existing in a state of brisk, cheerful, keen communion.
Okay, I admit, that sounds a bit more like a university common room than the pearly gates.
Right.
But what's so interesting is that Lewis grapples with this concept. He doesn't shy away from it at all.
It's a testament to his intellectual honesty. He's willing to sit with the discomfort, with the uncertainty, and to let go of what he thought he knew in order to embrace a more nuanced understanding.
And it's this willingness to question, to remain open, that leads him to that pivotal experience with that chuckling presence.
Ah, yes, this is where things get really intriguing. It wasn't a vision or a dream, but this sense of intellectual connection, a meeting of minds that kind of goes beyond what we normally think of with spiritual experiences.
And it's this encounter, this connection that's devoid of all that sentimentality, that allows Lewis to reconcile with the idea of a less conventional afterlife. It's like he realized that maybe he didn't fully get what it meant to be a pure intelligence,
Yeah.
to experience connection in a purely intellectual and spiritual way.
It's a mind-bending concept. And what's so remarkable is that Lewis, instead of rejecting it, lets himself be transformed by this experience. It really challenges his beliefs about the soul, the possibilities of connection beyond the physical world.
It's like he's pushing us to expand how we even define connection, to consider that what comes next might be even more profound, more expansive than our human minds can grasp.
Absolutely. And it really speaks to how limited language is. Our human attempts, I guess, to articulate something we just can't. Lewis seems to be saying that words, even those with religious meaning, can only go so far. You
Mm.
know, like true understanding, true connection might be on a whole other level that's beyond what we can even comprehend right now.
It's humbling and liberating at the same time, right? Like to admit there's so much we just don't know, but to stay open to the possibility that those things, the things we can't even imagine, might be more amazing than anything we could dream up.
Precisely. It's about embracing the mystery, that space where what we know and don't know can both exist. And it's that openness, that willingness to see things in a new way, understand things differently, that lets Lewis deal with the harder parts of grief, even the guilt he felt at first when he started to feel moments of joy and peace again.
You know what really struck me was how honestly he wrote about that shame, that feeling of like betraying H's memory by letting himself feel happiness again.
It's so common, but we never really talk about it, do we? It's like there's this unspoken pressure to just stay sad, like moving through grief cheapens how much we love them or how important they were.
And Lewis just breaks that idea apart. He realizes that holding on so tightly to his grief wasn't doing anything to honor her. It was building a wall between them, stopping him from experiencing her spirit.
Exactly. He realizes that real connection, even when someone's gone, means letting go a little, making room for joy alongside sadness. It's understanding how we carry the people we've lost with us in a much deeper way.
It's about honoring them, not by staying sad forever, but by really living, by letting ourselves feel joy, connection, even laughter, as if they're right there with us. It's like he found a way through grief that honors both the pain of what's gone and the strength of the love that remains.
And that's what makes A Grief Observed so powerful and so timeless. It doesn't try to give you easy answers or tell you the right way to grieve. Instead, Lewis is inviting us to join him on this journey. His own messy, personal experience of dealing with loss, with doubt, with the very nature of faith and love.
It's a book I know I'll keep coming back to. There's so much in there.
Absolutely. It shows just how powerful literature can be, shedding light on even those dark parts of what it means to be human, offering comfort, understanding, and yeah, maybe even a little bit of hope as we all figure out how to deal with grief and life's mysteries.
And on that note, we've come to the end of our deep dive into C.S. Lewis's A Grief Observed. We hope this look at his book has given you a new understanding of this incredible work. Maybe even got you thinking about love, loss, and just how strong the human spirit can be.
We hope you'll keep the conversation going. Explore those themes that resonated with you. Maybe even go back to Lewis's own words and see what other layers of meaning you can find.
Until next time, keep searching, keep asking those questions, and keep diving deep.